On this episode of MyDrive, we get to speak with our first guest from Prescott Valley Outdoor Summit, who just happens to be a culinary mastermind. We check in on Frontier Days with Chino Valley, the Yavapai County Fair, and even get to talk about a few Shady ladies. Welcome to another edition of MyDrive from Cast 11 Studios. I'm Elicia, and today we are lucky enough to be joined in the studio by Brett Vibber. He is the culinary director at Mortimer Farms, but really so much more. So how did you end up as the culinary director, and what does that entail at Mortimer Farms?
It entails all kinds of cool things. Thanks for having me. I ended up back at Mortimer Farms. I was there for a year during the pandemic when kind of restaurant industry people were figuring out their next move. And it was an interesting time that the farm was open, and I could kind of bring some culinary skills to the farm where they'd been desiring that. I'd had a restaurant in Cave Creek for years and bought things from the Mortimers, so I'd been serving their food for a long time. It kind of seemed like a cool opportunity at that point in time to jump into, being there all the time and, picking my food and putting it on a plate. And, the years went by. I was gone for a couple of years, and, they've built this multi-million-dollar state-of-the-art kitchen over there to back up, their dreams and desires. And that was kind of something I was involved with a few years ago, and sort of got to a point where I've outgrown the restaurant business because I like doing a number of other things. And this gives me kind of the outlet to do a lot of other things on one property while also, skating away to go salmon fishing in northern Alaska for 6 weeks a year.
Nice. So you just get to go out and so that's kind of your background, right? Just picking, foraging.
Yep. Wild foods of Arizona. That's kind of been my thing since I got out of corporate chefing decade or so ago. The plan was to come back home and put everything kind of together, but through a scope of what could be Arizona cuisine, and it was kind of bottomless. So
I was excited to hear you were going to be involved with Prescott Valley Outdoor Summit, but had no idea what you were. I was like, we've got this great chef. He's coming to PVOS. So now it's starting to make sense to me what your role is. So how are you going to be involved with Prescott Valley Outdoor Summit? What are you going to be doing?
Talk and demo on the wild foods of Arizona, and it's kind of the perfect time of year is, mushroom season and, things that we've already picked throughout the summer, wild onions, wild garlic, and, I'm going to leave here and go collect a bunch of prickly pears on my way home. So just things that are indigenous to Arizona that we can, embrace in maybe a familiar way.
Awesome.
So making wild mushroom pot stickers, I believe.
Oh, that'll be So that's scary to me because I never know which mushrooms are good, which mushrooms are bad. So
yeah,
it's dangerous.
Mushrooms, one thing you need to learn from someone like physically holding your hand and showing you exactly what it was, what it is. I can tell people easily over the phone on, through a picture, like, yeah, that's a prickly pear, and it's, the wrong one's not going to kill you. There's a couple different kinds, but, mushrooms was one of the last things I introduced as like a wild food that I serve to the public, because you want to make sure you're dotting your I's and crossing your T's on them.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this podcast, do not go in your backyard and start picking stuff and trying to make pot stickers out of them.
Every time I end up speaking about mushrooms, I get like an influx on social media messages of like, hey, I heard you on this podcast. Is this getting like, I won't answer. You got to go, there's groups like the Arizona Mushroom Forum that have, qualified scientists from, the universities and whatnot that lead people on, educational forays and things like that.
Perfect. Well, we're excited to have you at Prescott Valley Outdoor Summit, September 29th through October 1st. So we're a little over 30 days out. So it's getting closer. We're excited about that. In the meantime, some things to keep you guys busy while we're waiting and counting down for PVOS. Chino's having their Territorial Days. It's their 36th annual Territorial Days, and kicking things off Friday with a chili cook-off. You are pretty, I know you're a great chef, but cook-offs, do you ever do anything like that?
I try my best to stay away from them. This is too much athletics in my background to be.
You tackle somebody.
Yeah, cooking. Yeah, it turns into a wrestling match. It's I need to know my place in the world.
Smart. Too much competition. You'll be out there fighting somebody. So breakfast Saturday is going to have the Lions Pancake Breakfast at the Senior Center. There's going to be a 10K, which that seems really hard. But there's also a 2-mile walk run. There's vendors in the park, and that all starts at 9:15 for the Territorial Days parade. It's going to be followed by activities and games in the park. It's just, I think this is the corn dinner is going to be at Del Rio School. This is like the biggest event for Chino for the year. I mean, this is the event to be at. So that's all this weekend. And then what's going on in Prescott? There's a fair on the square.
Fair on the square downtown at the Yavapai County Courthouse. I always like this event. It's, cool vendors and artists and craftsmen and, snacks and shopping. My favorite's always been the Prescott regulators and their Shady ladies.
Shady ladies.
Get that old Westy feel. Downtown Prescott's not really a better place to do that than that. It's Saturday and Sunday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., again at the Courthouse Plaza.
Awesome. There's also going to be a class this weekend, Saturday, 9:30 to 10:30 at Waters Garden Center. Now that Ken Lane has hung up his dancing shoes, he's going to teach you guys the top 10 trees and how to plant them. So that's something in your background, right? Do you plant or do you just forage?
I tell people I'm a lot better at picking what Mother Nature has provided for me. We plant quite a bit of stuff, but being at the farm is nice that you kind of have a hand in planting, but someone else is going to water it and make sure it stays alive.
Yeah, that's me. I buy fake house plants too because I just no good at that. So Judy Collins is the voice of a generation, and she's coming to Prescott. Many performers can distinguish themselves with a hit or two. A lucky few of those can string several songs into a career, but only the rarest of artists can use their voice to capture the flavor of an entire era in song. Yavapai College invites you to join us when Jim and Linda Lee, Performing Arts Center, proudly present An Evening with Judy Collins. That's Friday night, September 1st at 7 p.m. And let's see, we've got the fair is coming up. So with the Yavapai County Fair, you've got to have some pretty creative foods that you've done or fair foods that you love. What's some of your favorites over there?
We were just thinking about this morning, just because it's kind of that season of the year. Funnel cakes I always go back to. We did them at a big Boy Scout fair every year. That was like our troops thing. So always that. But, deep fried Oreos and deep fried Snickers kind of change your life at, different points in time. So I remember the first time I had those as well.
Yeah, the one great thing about the fair, I mean, there's so many fun things to do with the animals and everything, but you got to stop for those foods. We're celebrating 110 years this September of the Yavapai County Fair. It goes September 7th through the 10th. And always a fun time. I just love it. The rodeo out there too, like all the animals that they're giving out or auctioning, I guess that they do. It is crazy to me how much time is put into this fair, making this work. It's a year-long project getting it going. Prescott Badgers football dominates La Jolla in season opening win. Were you local to Prescott or I know Arizona, but
I grew up in Tempe.
Oh, okay. So Prescott Badgers football, anything familiar about that for you?
Yeah, my son, my kids are in school in Prescott. So my son played a couple years for the little Prescott Badgers.
Oh, the Prescott Badgers, yeah.
So, it's kind of cool, in a smaller town like this that you see, kind of one group of kids get to stay together,
Kind of grow up together. And
they grow up together. They play the same sports together. It's a lot different than, in Tempe, there would have been 5 different little kid football teams, and you'd go to different high schools and junior highs. So it's kind of cool to see them have those bonds and they go through these different seasons with each other. And, it's also cool to see Prescott win 39-0.
Yeah, nice way to start the season. Badgers did not the same thing, but did have a nice dominant performance. And then Chino did not. They had a big game up at NAU or I think that's where Flagstaff ended up coming away with the loss. I think that's 2 now for them. Hopefully their coach will be able to find a way to right that ship and get them on the right track. I think it's hard when you put a new coach into start coaching the kids over there, trying to figure that out.
I grew up with a coach.
Oh, that's right. So your background was wrestling, right?
Yeah, my dad coached football, wrestling, and track at our high school, but we were a predominantly wrestling family. Yep.
So I just started getting familiar with wrestlers because one of the gals I coach cheerleading with, her husband's a wrestling coach, and such an intense sport.
It's a totally different sport. You explain it. I helped coach the little guys in Prescott this year, and it's so different than any other sport. And my dad always said it. It's a much more intimate sport than anything else. It's just you two out there, and it's not like a tennis match. You two out there. It's
one wheel over another,
yep,
right?
Yep. So it's a totally different kind of thing.
I have a new respect for it watching because one of my cheerleaders, one of our girls, she's a female wrestler too. And to watch her whole persona change, from out there doing, stunts and everything to just this, like you see her face completely change when it's time to get in for a match.
Warrior instincts.
Yeah, it's crazy to watch.
That's the coolest thing is that how girls wrestling has come around. When I was younger, they were starting to drop men's wrestling programs because there wasn't a Title IX equivalent for it. And now you're seeing girls and now women's wrestling and in college come around in a big way, and I think it's great for the sport, and I think
it's awesome.
Super awesome to watch them.
It's funny because we have non-wrestling boys that are on our cheer teams, and they'll like square up with her, like goofing around, and she will pin them in 2 seconds. It is great to watch.
No doubt.
So that is awesome. So we've talked about pretty much after 11. So live music happy hour this Friday. Okay, so we've got a chef here finally. Is it artisan or is it artesian bread?
I think it's artisan.
There you go. That's what I thought too.
Sounds good to me.
Sounds good. So Fridays 5 to 7, you've got happy hour. Donna's doing a great job. I don't know if you've been over to After 11, but their food is really
I haven't because I'm new living in the area and new back working to the area out of being in Oak Creek for the last year or so, but I've heard about it from nearly everyone I've talked to that's around. So it sounds like somewhere we need to check out. My wife and I were just talking about new places to check out. We're out of the Phoenix area now and out of the Sedona area and in this area. So, that's the first thing. I don't know if it's the first thing that everyone does, but every time we've moved somewhere new, it's the first thing. It's definitely the first thing a chef does is makes a list of restaurants that they've been wanting to try.
Well, I would recommend After 11. They do a really great job with, she's just really stepped up the menu over there as well. Idealios of the week. That's just where we've got specials that go on every week. This week, it's 10% off a whole house surge protector. You probably know this, but with monsoons, the lightning, get yourself protected with a whole home surge protector. So, S&M Electric. Gosh, with S&M Electric. I've got my peanut gallery over here. So I think we've covered everything. I just wanted to ask you, so I heard, you are a James Beard Award nominee.
Yeah, I was one of the semifinalists last year, along with our other chef at the restaurant that I've recently left behind for new ventures. But he and I worked together for 17 years, and that was kind of a culmination of the concept that we'd put in, and not one ingredient in the restaurant, not from Arizona, right down to alcohol, beer, wine, everything produced here, and everything on the menu reflected wild foods or indigenous foods in one way, shape, or form, but our tasting menu was all Arizona foraged ingredients.
It's a really big deal. I mean, they don't just, to even be nominated, it's just.
No, it was great. It was great to see that, we'd put this idea together, years and years ago and sort of experimented with it at my restaurant that I had in Cave Creek before, but to really kind of have the time during the pandemic that we didn't have a restaurant open, that we were foraging more than we ever had, and we were doing pop-up dinners. So it gave you a lot of time to develop, menu items or dishes that you would be able to feature throughout the year. So when we finally got into that restaurant space, it was really cool to see, an actual dream come to fruition and have it recognized, in a pretty quick way. It was 6 months only we'd been opened, and that happened. And just to be included. It's, it wasn't a goal of saying, I hope this concept should win the James Beard, and that's what we're trying to do. It's nice to be recognized when you're not necessarily focused on something like that. Right.
And sometimes that's the best way for something to happen. You're just focused on making a great product, and it just happens to be amazing
it was great.
to other people too. Well, perfect. We've covered everything for MyDrive. I'm excited to see you and at the Prescott Valley Outdoor Summit. What you bring to that, I think it's going to be super cool.
Start hunting mushrooms now.
Do not go out and start hunting mushrooms. Please
Disclaimer.
wait to watch. Disclaimer. Please wait to watch what Brett's going to do.
And even still wait.
And even still, just don't do it. Just go to the market. So, well, congratulations on everything that you're doing. Excited to see what you bring out to Mortimer Farm and have some fun picking those berries and twigs. I want to say twigs. I think you could make an awesome stuff with just twigs and weeds, they were saying.
We surprise people from time to time. So, yeah, there will be a lot of cool things at Mortimer Farms, especially once a month, a farm-to-table dinner that highlights a local Arizona wine. So we already did one my first week back and highlighted Mogollon Vineyards, which is right down the road. And, just to bring all things Arizona together is kind of the story of my life.
What a perfect way to end. Thank you guys so much for listening to MyDrive. And Brett, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Watch out for those roundabouts. See ya.